Welcome to the New Year, New You Challenge, hosted by Crystal from Crafty Creech DIYs and Furniture Flips, and also by DIYs by Dar. Time to get started on my New Year, New You challenge. This challenge is all about doing something you've never done before or working with materials you've never used before. And for my project, I'm planning on doing a little bit of all of that. Here's my project piece. It's kind of a mid-century piece, and it has these liners in the drawers, which are in very good condition and will actually go perfectly with my design plan. So whoever had this cut a piece out for trim, it must have been, they just cut it to fit right in a spot because it's the same way on the bottom. They just cut that little section out and there you have it. So we need to take care of that. So my plan is a whole different thing that I've never done before, and it's kind of like a Western theme. I plan on using this paper. Well, it's fabric actually, and it doesn't have a nap to it like it looks, but it does have texture to it, and it is on the back lined with like a flannel. So it's very heavy. I've decoupaged in the past, but never used anything like this. So I'm going to have to do some research and see what I'm going to be able to use that's heavy enough. Like I feel like I either need to use a thick gel or paste or something in order to decoupage it. I'm also using this horse. This is a Dixie Belle decoupage paper, and it's a rice paper, so it has those little fibers in it. I plan on putting this in the front of the dresser on those big 3 drawers, and then the horsehair print on the upper drawers and the side. I struggle a minute getting the drawers out. I found that the best way to do it is just kind of give it a hard tug, and it will disengage that sliding mechanism in there. So I eventually got all the drawers out. I take this time to inspect them, and then I grab a Sharpie and number them. So I want to make sure that they go back in the way they came out. So I'm starting with 1, obviously. I continue with the rest, and these ones I'll start again at 1. In the category of strange things you find in drawers, there were some building blocks, one of the little feet for the dresser, and also a pair of socks. Back up it goes, only this time just halfway. I'm going to leave it on its top. That way I can inspect the base and do what I need to do with it to remove some of that skirting on it. Well, that's interesting. So it had wheels only on the front. Then I get to work on removing that base. So there's screws in there, so I'm removing all of them. I'm hoping that it's just screwed and not screwed and glued with some really strong glue. As it turns out, I have to be careful with the first piece I remove because some of the veneer starts to peel away. So I'm going to try to be careful with that so that I don't ruin that, because the less I have to remove, then that's the less I have to repair. But it won't be a big repair. The other side comes off real easily, and then I move on to the front. It comes off pretty easily as well. Now is the perfect time to clean the bottom of the piece. I'm using the same white lightning that I always use on the surfaces that I'm going to paint because it's a good cleaner. However, I don't bother rinsing it because I won't be painting that surface. I measure and decide that I need a 6-inch piece of wood to go around. I look in my stash and I really don't have any, so I need to order some wood. So I'm done for today. I got my supplies. I got 2 6-inch pine boards and Mod Podge that I've never used before. It's a hard surface formula. Gotta love warped lumber. Happens every time, but I'll be cutting that piece, so no worries. First, I glue down that veneer and clamp it and let it dry before I add the base. I'm just using some Titebond Thick and Quick, and I'll then use the nail gun. I normally don't use this Batman hardware and save it, but for this design, I think it's going to work. I make a template using tissue paper so I know how big to cut my horsehair fabric. Midway through my project, I looked for some inspiration and I saw this piece, which I don't love. I don't like the red on it, but I do love the bottom. So I go back to the front of my piece. I took the old piece of skirting and traced a little bit because I liked that curly design, but it had a long stretch in the middle that didn't have anything. So I took an old tabletop that I had that was oval in shape, and I measured and centered it and used it as a template to put another curve in the front of my skirt. And I just used the jigsaw to cut out the curvy shapes and sanded it afterwards. I reinsert the big drawers in the front because that's where my decoupage is going to happen with the horse design. I paint it white so that it's nice and bright in the background. I do get a little bleed through, but I'm not concerned about it because I'm going to be decoupaging and painting over this surface, so it's not a big deal. I keep it on its back because I just think this is going to be a lot easier. I recently watched a video that Chris Donna did of Bella Renovare, and she actually was working with a horse stencil or a decoupage paper, and she mentioned that you want to make sure that you don't position his eyes or anything where the handles will go, just so that you don't have any awkward placement. And she also suggested tearing the end for an easier transition. I do that and then I trim the long end. So in my case, the position wasn't an issue. So I am just using regular flat clear coat sealer from Dixie Belle for this rice paper because I know it will work for it. I don't need to use that heavy duty Mod Podge hard coat. So I'm just simply applying the medium or the clear coat underneath and then carefully flattening and spreading out my decoupage paper. You almost can kind of stretch the decoupage paper a little bit, so I just keep working with it. I'm trying to get most of the wrinkles out. I don't freak out about a little wrinkle or two. I mean, it's a vintage looking piece, so Western and all that, so what's a few wrinkles, but I'm just trying to get most of them out because this beautiful horse image, we want to be the star of the show. While that's drying, I turn my attention to the handles. So I'm going to be using Dixie Belle's patina, which is an oxidization process where the handles will rust. Whenever you use it, you have to use what's called prime start if you're painting on metal. That's really important so that it doesn't actually go through to your metal when that oxidization occurs. Is it oxidation or oxidization? I think I'm adding an extra syllable. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Okay, so I'm using my fan deck to do some color matching. Boy, Mother Nature's amazing. Or whoever painted this, I'm assuming Mother Nature was their guide. But I would never choose these colors to put together, like purple and orange. I picked aubergine, which is a gorgeous deep purple shade, and then terracotta. So these two colors, if I were to paint anything else, it would look like Halloween to me. But in this situation, it's just a gorgeous sunset. So, God has a great eye for design, right? I apologize for having some of this kind of off screen. I get in the moment sometimes and don't always make sure that I'm filming properly. So my apologies for that. But as you can see, I'm just kind of trying to follow those lines along and just follow that color out. I'm not worrying about how it looks right now because I'm going to take this brush, this big round brush, they call it the Best Dang brush from Dixie Belle, and I'm misting a little bit and I'm just pouncing and blending those colors together. That brush makes it super easy. So as you can see, I didn't do a whole lot of major blending with this. It was pretty darn easy with that brush. The other color that I matched up at the top where it gets light was Sawmill Gravy. And I use that not only in this area, but I continue around the frame of those top drawers and on the side where the cabinet door goes. And I'll also use it on the sides of the furniture. I try and remember to wipe that blending brush off periodically so that I don't make a real muddy mess out of all those colors. I try to keep that one neutral so that I can just blend together. So I kind of went down that line, and as you can see, I created more of a line, so I come back over it with a little more color and blend it in again. I continue on this side, and with a better angle, you'll get a little bit better look. The last color in my palette is Coffee Bean, and I use it to paint in the rest of the horse. I also touch up a little bit around the drawers and stuff, just in areas, and also to bring that color in so everything's cohesive. So after you decoupage, it's okay to paint over it too. It's looking pretty good. You can definitely see where the paper was. Later on, I come back in and try to add a little bit more color in there and make that line a little less noticeable. But you're looking at it in bright light and we're really calling attention to it, so it's not quite that noticeable later on. Back to my handles, it's time to add the bronze. And of course, you always want to shake this paint up because it has metal particles in it that need to be distributed. So, same process, I'm painting it, and then when I put my second coat on, that's when I come back in with the activator spray. And so I'm using bronze, and I'm going to use blue and green in my activator spray because I feel like I want to get a turquoise color, which is very Western. The blue sprays beautifully, And the green doesn't spray so well, and that's my bad, because you're supposed to take the cap off and rinse it after each use, but I don't do that all the time. So I just kind of dip the sprayer thing in there and just kind of drop it on there. And it all works out okay. And sometimes I dab it with a paper towel. Just as long as you get that product on there, that's all that counts. And the dabbing sometimes makes it look pretty cool too. So fun product to try. So now I'm going to try my hand with this new product for me, which is this Mod Podge hard coat sealer. So I give it a good generous coat in the area I want to use. I start with the easiest one and then I coat it. The reason why I say this one is easy is because the other drawers have like a dip in the top, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. I was also really nervous about using the Mod Podge on top of that fabric. I thought it might take away the cool texture of it. But as it turned out, it was fine, and they hardened nicely, but I'm going to have to trim them. So right now I'm trimming the drawer sections out of my decoupage paper so that you'll be able to open the drawers. And I do have a little spot that I messed up, but I'll be touching this up on the edges with sandpaper, and also then sealing back those edges with my sealer, and also touching up with paint. So I trim around the edges of my drawers, and that's how my hardware was looking. And funny how you learn to innovate, but I'm using a garbage can to hold my drawers as I put in some of those studs. And those are just decorator tacks that I got at Lowe's. And now I'm just kind of gently pushing through from the other side to see where the holes are for my hardware. I am working today. I'm at the store, so it's a Saturday and I need to be out front. So I'm bringing as much as I can out to the sales floor so I can work on it incrementally. So I'm using Easy Peasy spray wax here after I've trimmed around those edges, because I want to use gray wax here. This is grunge gray wax, and this makes me feel a lot better because I wasn't loving the way those edges looked. The studs helped with it, but when you think about it, if you see like cowhide or something like that, it has uneven edges. So but this kind of got rid of the white edges that were there, and I like that so much better. And I repeat the process with the door. Now there's a lot of detail around the kind of molding of the door frame, so I use that wax in all those areas. And I did also come back with an 80 grit and do a distress on all the doors and the drawers as well. So as I do this process, I use the spray, Easy Peasy spray wax, to kind of float my grunge gray wax so that it doesn't look too harsh. And in some areas I get more than I want, and that's the beauty of using a clear wax first, because after I'm done I spray again in the areas that I have too much, and then it acts as an eraser and pulls back some of that wax, and I'm pretty happy with the way it looks afterwards. Onto the base, I use the coffee bean color that I used on the horse, and I simply coat it, and I want to make sure I get those edges underneath. And I'm going to use a faux wood grain technique on here. I'm not going to use a roller or a wood grain tool. I always call it a rocker. And so what I'm using is Voodoo Gel Stain in White Magic, in Up in Smoke, which is a gray color, and also the Au Naturel. And I just always like to use this technique I love the squeeze bottle. Just squirt some of it on randomly. I always say it kind of looks like Morse code. Then I'm using the same brush and I'm just using long strokes. I don't want to work it together too much. I want to keep that variation in there, just like you would see in wood grain. And then I come back with another brush after I do this, and it's sort of an older, rough brush, and I just do long streaks, long swipe with it so that I just kind of get that look of wood grain in there. Remember the top and that little notch that was cut out? Now it's time for me to remove that and also cut off the other side so that they're even. Making lots of sawdust, but I clean it up because everything was dry. I do the same treatment on the top as I did on the front skirt. I've already coated it with the coffee bean, and while it's wet, I'm applying those Voodoo Gel Stain colors. After I apply a second coat of sawmill gravy to the sides, I feel like I want to add just an interesting little design detail, and I pull a little bit of that color around the side. I just kind of want it to look a little like a wispy cloud that just kind of carried over onto the other side. I use the same technique that I did on the front, but because my sawmill gravy paint was wet, whenever I tried to go around the front to touch that up, I ended up getting a little bit of the sawmill gravy over there. And I didn't really want that. It made it too light. So I came back in with the darker colors and then a dry paper towel. And that became my blending. So I was using, the mist, and I was using a bigger brush or a softer brush to do the blending, and that was working, except as you can see, I'm pulling more white over into my front of my design, and I don't really want that, so I'm adding back that color in. But now I think the important part here is I keep doing it because I'm using the same brushes. So Lexi comes back and I ask her to hand me a paper towel, and that kind of saves the day because that becomes my blending tool and it works out just fine. So just remember sometimes, like, just to try to think what's happening here is, instead of keep going, making it worse, like, what's the problem here? And the problem was my sawmill gravy, and also the wet paint was making it worse. Inspiration's truly everywhere. This is my own handbag, and I actually think of this ancient mudcloth stencil from Dixie Belle, and I just lightly and kind of randomly use it on the sides because that's how it is on the front of my purse. It's just like really just faint and kind of faded. And I thought I saw this kind of all along because I felt like it looked pretty Western. And I kind of wanted to put some of it over that area, the clouds that I brought around on the side. So let's take a look back. Did I achieve my goals? Did I try a new technique? I feel like I tried new techniques the whole way along, especially in working with the new product I never used, or one of them is the horsehair fabric, and also the Mod Podge hard coat, 2 new products I had never used. I definitely tried a new color choice with the purple and the orange. Those are definitely 2 colors I would never have put together if it wouldn't have been for that decoupage paper. And lastly, the furniture style. I've kind of always had this in my mind that I wanted to do, but never tried it, so I'm really happy that I tried this Western style. Please check out the playlist, and thank you so much, Crystal and Dara, for hosting this unique antique challenge. Let's have a look at the finished piece. Thank you so much for watching today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment and share it with your friends. All those things really help my channel. Also, I'd love it if you subscribe. We also have a channel membership that's only 99 cents a month, and I provide exclusive content for my channel members on Tuesdays. You can find Statement Designs on social media everywhere as Statement Designs, and also visit us on the website at statementdesigns.org. And as always, stay well.